There we are. Good morning. Well, it's wonderful to be in PE. It's always fun to come back. The home of Chipper United. Now, I'm a Joburg boy, so I'm a Pirates supporter. And in my books, even though it was December last year, anyone that can beat Chiefs is okay. Yes. So it's wonderful to be here. Over the last 20 years or so of my life, I've had the opportunity of working with some exceptional entrepreneurs and some great businesses. Some of these businesses went on to become multi-billion rand multinational businesses. Some of the other businesses went on to become very successful local businesses. And it's been a tremendous learning experience. If there's one thing I've learned, though, about entrepreneurs, it's the fact that nowhere else will you find a group of people that is exposed to such great reward and such great risk at the same time. And this is an incredibly, incredibly hard thing to do. And in South Africa, if you look at the statistics alone, in the first year, 17 out of 20 new businesses fail. And even if you make it past that first year, in the first 5 years, still 15 out of 20 businesses fail. And this is an incredibly daunting thing. So one thing this dynamic has taught me is the fact that if I am going to run a business, it becomes critically important to manage your risk as far as you can, and once you start making money, to make sure that you tie that money into your business. And once you've done that, that you secure that money so that if something goes wrong, you don't have to start all over again. And over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about what these risks are and what we can do to protect ourselves against that, and how we can think about the wealth that we start generating in our businesses as we go along. Now, as everybody here knows, in the first 5 years or so, possibly even longer, of starting your own business, everything you have goes into that. All your money, all your time, all your effort, all your energy. If you don't do that, the business is probably not going to make it. And we become so accustomed to doing this that once the business starts making money, because we've so conditioned ourselves to just plow everything back into the business all of the time, we just keep doing that, and we just keep doing that. And it's not a bad thing, but at a certain point, we have to evolve our thinking past the point of becoming rich to also start thinking about how do I stay rich and how do I secure the wealth that I've created. I'll demonstrate this by way of example, and I'm giving away my age here. As you can see from my hairstyle, I'm no longer a young man. In the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was with Deloitte, one of the businesses we consulted to was a business called Dimension Data. Now, Dimension Data, at the time of the IT bubble, went through this tremendous growth curve. I had as clients a couple of people that had invested 30 or 40,000 rand into a business, and 5 years later, they were worth 150 million rand, 200 million rand. So they made a great deal of money. And with Deloitte, it was my job to sit down with these people and see what we could do from a tax and investment perspective to get them to invest their money and make it safer. And it was a really hard conversation to have, because sitting down with an entrepreneur that was successful, the typical answer was, well, why would I invest my money anywhere else? Look at how much money I've made in my business. I'll just keep pumping it back into my business. Well, that's when Dimension Data was trading at 75 rand a share. A year later, they were trading at 7.50 rand a share. Yeah. And 6 months after that, they were trading at 3.75 rand. So the same guy that I sat down with a year and a half ago that was worth 200 million rand was now suddenly worth 10 million rand. Which doesn't sound so bad until you consider that in that year and a half he got divorced and he bought a 30 million rand home and a Ferrari. So sometimes horrible things happen. And if I'm going to run a business successfully, if I'm going to manage my risks successfully, I'm going to protect my wealth successfully. One of the quotes that come to mind for me is a quote by a guy called Warren Buffett. Certainly the most successful investor the world has ever seen, and one of the best entrepreneurs the world has ever seen. And Warren Buffett at one stage said the following: to invest successfully over a lifetime, whether it be into your business or whether it be into the markets, does not require a stratospheric IQ, unusual business insights or inside information. What's needed is a sound intellectual framework for making decisions and the ability to keep your emotions from corroding that framework. So one of the things we have to learn as entrepreneurs is there's a difference between building a business that lives and protecting a business that's going to grow over time. So how do we do that? Well, I found that when it comes to thinking about our businesses and the businesses that we're growing, in my experience with entrepreneurs, there are 3 different types of assets that they have in their lives. And if we understand what each one of those types of assets are and what the rules are that apply to them, our chances of being able to make good decisions become significantly better. The first type of asset we find in the life of the entrepreneur is your business assets. Probably the single most important thing in your life right now. That don't tell your spouse or your children, but this is a big deal. And if you're ever going to get rich, this is where it's going to happen. And we know that. That's the reward for the great risks that we take. If you are going to have debt, by the way, this is where you want to have debt. Because if I'm going to borrow money, I invested in something that's going to make me money. Unlike a car or a house, that may well just end up losing me money over time. What is critically important is to understand what my biggest risks in my business are and to understand that there are certain things I can do to protect myself against those risks. In a way, when I think about a business, for me it's a little bit like thinking about a water tank. The water in the tank is the money that we make. And the objective of the business, if it's going to be successful, is to get enough money into that tank that I'm going to be okay. So if I want to fill up the money tank in my business, it's about managing 2 things. Firstly, it's about securing your inflows, making sure that you get yourself the best possible chance of making the money into your business that you need to make. And as far as that goes, I look at my own wife who ran a corporate catering business in Johannesburg for many years. I know one of her big bugbears was debtors, people that just don't pay. Have you guys come across that? It's absolutely horrible. It frustrated her so much. Well, when it comes to debtors that just don't pay, the great thing is that it's actually possible to insure yourself against that. So if you sit down with the right people, they can have a look at your debtors book and they can guarantee payment even if your debtors can't pay. And that's a pretty important thing, especially early on in the life of a business, if you're going to sustain your business past that point. Of course, we can help you with that, and afterwards I'll briefly introduce you to somebody that does that. The second risk you want to protect if you're going to run a business is you want to protect your own ability to make money. Because the biggest risk in your business as a young business is if something happens to you and your ability to earn money. So that is the one thing via disability cover that you want to make sure you understand and that you insure. Because if something goes wrong with you, your ability to fill that tank gets completely stripped away and you need somebody to step in and fill it on your behalf. The second thing we need to do with our tank, aside from making sure that we get as much water to flow in, is to make sure that we keep as little water as possible from flowing out of the business. We want to keep the money in our business. And especially for a younger business, the risk of financial catastrophe, a big bad thing happening, is a massive one. So the things you want to think about in your business is, firstly, make sure that at all times you've got enough short-term insurance cover. If somebody crashes your delivery van, or steals your inventory, or if your factory or your building gets damaged, and you're not insured to repair that, you are dead in the water. And sometimes we forget, when a business is young, they grow so quickly, so incredibly rapidly, that the assets we have and the stuff we have doubles and redoubles every few years. It is critically important to make sure that we insure ourselves against damage to those assets. The final consideration that we want to think about, if you have got a partner or multiple partners in your business, if something should happen to one of your partners, let's say they should pass away tomorrow, what's going to happen in your business? Because ideally what you want to do is you want to buy their share. I tend to find if a partner passes away, their share in the business gets inherited by their spouse, by their family typically. Now you sit with somebody that's got a share in your business, and you've got one of two options. Either they start influencing how you manage the business and what you do, which is usually a very, very bad idea. Or alternatively, you have to buy their share in the business, which is going to cost a lot of money. So if you ensure the life of the partners in the business when they do pass away, at least you've got enough money coming in to make sure you can buy that share and retain control. And past a certain point, that's absolutely something that you have to think of. So that looks at business assets. The second type of asset I find in the life of entrepreneurs, and boy, entrepreneurs are good at this. I was speaking in Polokwane last year, which is probably the most entrepreneurial city I've been to in South Africa. And I was doing a talk, and the people rocked up in McLarens and Ferraris and Lamborghinis. It just blew my mind. It's Polokwane. I never knew there was so much money there. What we tend to do, the more successful I am in my business, once I start making money, I tend to spend that on my lifestyle assets. House, car, sort of extra wife, extra husband. All those things are incredibly expensive. Because our nature is, the money that I don't reinvest back in my business, because I suffered for so long, of course I'm going to buy the toys. And that becomes a very dangerous dynamic. Firstly, when it comes to your lifestyle assets, the money that you live with, the assets that you live with, the single most important thing to understand is that this is absolutely where you don't want any debt. And once you increase your lifestyle, you go overseas maybe twice a year, you drive an S-Class Mercedes, it's very hard to go back. So it's critically important to make sure that the things you spend your money on will be sustainable over time. If it's not, it becomes a really, really tough position. For those of you whose businesses have become very successful sitting here today, you'll know the temptation of spending those money on nice rewards and spending it on the wrong stuff. And early on in the life of a business, it's incredibly important to sit down and take stock of what the really important things are that you want to spend your time and your money on. Again, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs maybe fail to apply their minds. To demonstrate what those things are, I'll briefly refer to an experiment they did in Belgium a couple of years ago at the University of Liège. What they did is they had this small little room in a laboratory, white tile floor, stainless steel table, and they had a couple of hundred people come into the room. And they asked these people two questions. The first question they asked these people, they put a chocolate bar on the table. And they asked them, on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy would this chocolate bar make you? Now, these people like me, they really love chocolate, as you can see. And the chocolate bar, by and large, did very well. People say, well, 8 out of 10. That was the going score. What they then did is they took the chocolate bar off the table, and they rolled a trolley into the room, and on the trolley was €1 million in cash. It's about 15 million rand or so. It's a lot of money. And people could pick up the money, they could smell the money, they could, whatever you can do with so much money. It's like, they could take this money, but then eventually they had to give it back. And they took the trolley out the room. And they then proceeded to ask people the second question. And the second question was this. They put the same chocolate bar back on the table, and they asked them, on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy would this chocolate bar make you? What do you think happened? The chocolate bar suddenly scored 2 or 3 out of 10. So the lesson we need to learn out of this, when it comes to spending the money we make in our businesses, is buying stuff does make us happy, but how happy that makes us is a function of the other stuff that's out there that we could rather be having. And if you're going to get your joy and your pleasure out of buying things, you have to keep buying and keep buying and keep buying in order to sustain that same level of happiness. And eventually that eats up so much money that it's going to compromise your business. The things that do make people happy, studies have shown, are the following. These are the top 3. Meaningful relationships, rewarding experiences, having a sense of purpose. If you're going to spend your money, those are the things you want to spend the money on. And if you're going to build a business, with happy and contented staff. Those are the things you want to entrench in your business. So make sure you look after your staff. Look after them financially, build meaningful relationships, give them a sense of purpose. Make sure that you give them a rewarding experience and that you have a rewarding experience in working inside of that business. And once you've done this, you can now start thinking about securing your wealth over time. The third type of asset that we distinguish for entrepreneurs is what I think of as your wealth preservation assets. At some point in the life of your business, you're going to need to start channeling money out of your business and out of your lifestyle into a third bucket. That will be the money that's going to look after you for the rest of your life. And building that discipline is absolutely critical. Now, these assets aren't the sexy assets. I mean, if you look at a business, so it should double and redouble in growth, often every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But if I'm going to invest money to look after my long-term financial future, that's about protecting my risk. Making sure that even if the markets go down or my industry turns against me, my money will be safe. It's about tax efficiency. But if I have enough money in that pool over there, what I do find, there we go, is if I've got enough set aside, then even if my business should fall away tomorrow, even if something should go wrong with my business tomorrow, I'll be financially okay for the rest of my life. And switching your gears into understanding that there's a third strategy outside of your business and your lifestyle is the single most critical thing you can do to make sure that you'll be able to continue living a meaningful life. It also changes your thinking around your business quite significantly. Because if I no longer have to work in order to survive, but I can work in order to get the maximum enjoyment out of my business, we start doing things in a better way. We start being motivated by the right things and not the wrong things. Just a quick word of warning on your wealth preservation assets, your investment strategy outside of your business. For entrepreneurs, one of the biggest dangers around building an investment strategy with the wealth you generate from your business is something that in behavioral finance they call distractive risk. I'm not sure about this picture. If it's sexist, I do apologize. It's about the Porsche, it's not about the women. If we look at distractive risk essentially means that it's easy for us to forget about one strategy in favor of another, certainly based on what happens in the short term. So if you start building an investment strategy outside of your business, but your business, the data story I told earlier on, continues growing and doubling and redoubling in value, it's very easy for us to start thinking, well, maybe I should just take all my money and plow it back into my business. But if you're going to keep doing that, we have to accept that there are certain risks in our business that we can never make go away. If we look at the construction industry a couple of years ago, if we look at the IT industry, if we look at sort of pharmacies and pharmaceuticals and changes of legislation, often there are risks we can't protect. And even if the growth prospects are tempting, at some stage I have to accept for a portion of my money less growth for less risk. And if I can put these components together, then I can start building a really successful short and long-term financial strategy. So in summary, as an entrepreneur, what are the things you want to do when it comes to thinking about your business and the money in your business? Well, firstly, understand what the risks in your business are that you can protect and make sure that you do what you can to protect them. Secondly, once you pass the get-rich stage of your business's growth, once the money starts coming in, have two plans, a get-rich plan and a stay-rich plan, and make sure that they're two different things. And finally, if you're not sure how to do these things, partner with the people that can help you. And there are businesses like Old Mutual around that have been doing this for more than 100 years. And we need entrepreneurs to succeed, because if their businesses grow, our business grows. I'm going to end up with a cheesy quote, which I usually do. Sadly, I'm a lawyer, so I have no friends, but I have got the internet and sort of streaming movies. Watch a lot of Batman. And of course, my quote can only be from the most famous of people, Batman. In the movie Batman Begins, he said the following: it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. As an entrepreneur, you've got the best wishes, the best intentions, the best motivations. You want to make this thing work. But if you're going to make it work, wanting it to work is not enough. It's about doing the right things with the right people to protect your risks that will ultimately make you successful. Right, that's me. Thank you very much. What I am going to do, and to all the people that weren't here when I started, thank you for coming back. Before I go, I'm briefly going to introduce you to our team. If I can ask them to come up. Are they sitting around? We've got a stall in the back, and I spoke about guaranteeing payment. I spoke about managing risk in your business, etc. Briefly, for each one of the people on the stage, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, tell you what they do, and if it sounds like that might make sense in your business, please come have a chat to us afterwards. We'll be here till the end of the day. Also, if there are any questions, by the way, I'd be very happy to take those. But first, on to the introductions. Kevin.